Have you ever looked up and thought, why is it that some planes leave trails that fade straight away and then others they seem to linger for hours? Well, buckle up, bitches, because that is where the whole chemtrail theory begins. Hello friends, my name is Lana, and if you are a returning viewer then thank you for coming back, or if you are new here then welcome. I'm just out here learning about stuff that I find interesting and just wanting someone to share it with. I am by no means an expert. In fact, I'm new to all this stuff myself, but I'm just trying to learn, so just bear with me. Oh, and don't forget, I like to give both sides of the story and then leave it up to you to decide on what you believe in. So like I said, I'm just learning and giving you the information. Do with it what you will. Alright, so before we dive too deep, let's talk about what these things in the sky are. They are called contrails, which is short for condensation trails. Basically, they're made up of ice crystals that form when hot airplane exhaust mixes with the super cold air way up in the atmosphere. When plane engines burn fuel, that creates water vapor. And when that hot, moist air hits the freezing temperatures at high altitude, the water vapor instantly cools and turns into the tiny ice crystals. Those crystals clump together, and that is what makes the visible trail that follows the plane. It's literally the same thing as when you see your breath on a cold morning, except it's way bigger and it's way higher up in the sky. And just like your breath disappears when the air gets warm, contrails will fade too. The term chemtrail is short for chemical trail, and that was first coined by conspiracy theorists in 1996. These guys argued that the trails left behind the planes were actually made up of chemicals that were intentionally being released into the air for various and often nefarious reasons. One of the biggest theories floating around is that chemtrails are all about weather control. Some people think that governments are spraying stuff from up there to mess with our skies, like making it rain, stopping it from raining, causing droughts, or even changing the temperatures over huge areas. Others go a step further and say it's a type of weather warfare where some countries will actually use chemtrails to control another country's climate. People have actually been experimenting with ways to change the weather for decades, so that's really nothing new. But the idea that chemtrails were being used for this really started to kick off in about the 90s and early 2000s. China literally tried to control the weather for the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Yep, that's not a conspiracy, that actually happened. The Chinese government had a whole department dedicated to this. It was called the Beijing Weather Modification Office. And their goal was simple, which was to make sure it didn't rain during the opening ceremony. And honestly, they went all out. In the hours leading up to the big night, officials reportedly fired more than 1,000 rockets into the sky, and they were packed with silver iodide, which is a chemical that helps clouds to release their rain before they reach the city. The idea was to make it rain somewhere else so that the skies would stay perfectly clear for the event. Now, this process is called cloud seeding. It's a controlled method where chemicals like silver iodide are used to influence weather patterns. But it is important to note that this is very different to the whole chemtrail theory. The chemtrail theory says that there's large-scale secret spraying happening from airplanes. Cloud seeding is an open and scientifically studied practice. Chemtrails are not. And whether it actually worked or not is up for debate. Scientists can't actually prove that the rockets stopped the rain since the weather can be unpredictable anyway. But the governments are still giving it a red hot shot. And the chemtrail conversation gets even bigger because this, my friends, is where the theory of mind control comes into play. Over time, chemtrail theories would evolve from weather and climate manipulation into direct human influence. Some of the most extreme claims say that the trails aren't about the weather at all, they're about us. They say that the chemicals allegedly being sprayed are not about sunlight reflection or weather control, they're about mind control. The belief is that these substances could be used to dull our critical thinking, to lower resistance, or even to make the population more docile and compliant. And this is where things get extra spicy because a former professional wrestler and governor, Jesse Ventura, he jumped headfirst into this conversation and he took it mainstream. Now, if you don't know who Jesse Ventura is, imagine The Rock quit acting and he ran for office and he won, and then he started a conspiracy TV show. That's basically what happened. Jesse went from wrestling rings to the governor's office in Minnesota, and after politics, he jumped into conspiracy theories with his TV show, Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura. On his show, he explored a bunch of different types of topics like government secrets and weather manipulation. But one of his most talked about episodes was the one about HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Auroral is a hard word. Words like rural, they're hard for me to say. I don't know why. Auroral. The High Frequency Active Auroral Rural Research Program. It's a bloody hard word to say. Auroral. He believed that HAARP was a secret government project that could control people's minds. It is a remote research station out in Alaska with rows and rows of metal antennas. According to official studies, HAARP was created to see how radio waves would interact with the ionosphere, basically the charged upper layer of the Earth's atmosphere, to improve communication and navigational systems. Well, Jesse Ventura wanted to visit the facility for his show, but surprise, surprise, they wouldn't let him in. The producers filmed the guards turning them away at the gate, which only added to the conspiracy. But to be fair, HAARP isn't a tourist center. It is a research facility with sensitive equipment, so you can't just rock up there with cameras and expect a grand tour. Of course, they have strict, security and protocols in place. So people started speculating that the little metallic particles that are allegedly being sprayed by the planes, like aluminium, barium, or strontium, were turning the atmosphere into a kind of conductor. And if the air is filled with conductive material, then maybe HAARP could use those radio frequencies to not just control the weather, but also human brainwaves. Kind of like a giant remote control for the planet. I feel like it's kind of one of those theories that's kind of just believable enough to make you be like, well, maybe. Now, the scientific community has repeatedly shut down these claims. HAARP apparently operates on frequencies way too high to affect human brainwaves, and the energy levels just aren't strong enough to control weather patterns. It's like trying to heat up a swimming pool by using a hairdryer. The scale is just not matching. Some other theories went even further, suggesting that nanoparticles from the chemtrails could enter our body, and that could make us more sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies. So basically, HAARP would beam signals into the sky, and you and I are now filled with metal from the chemtrails, and we're just walking around like human, receivers. Isn't that wild? Jesse Ventura leaned into these theories, and he was asking questions that people wanted the answers to. Like, why are these planes leaving trails that last for hours? But the thing is that these trails can last anywhere from a few seconds to maybe half an hour or more, depending on the weather. The colder the air is, the longer the trails will stick around, because those little ice crystals that we talked about, they don't evaporate as fast. And if it's drier or slightly warmer, then they fade out quicker. And wind plays a big part too, because if it's a really windy day, then they're just going to dissipate. But if it's calm and there's no wind, then they just kind of chill there. So that's why sometimes you'll see one that's, disappearing really fast, or you might see one that's lasting for ages. It might not be a secret spray pattern. It might just be science doing a thing. Some people also pose the question, are they making us sick? And let me tell you, the internet has thoughts. The most common claims are regarding respiratory issues. People talk about on the days where there's trails in the sky, they're coughing more, they're wheezing, or their chest is tighter than normal. We're talking asthma attacks, bronchitis flare-ups, or full-on pneumonia. Some people believe that those metals are being released into our air and then they're floating down into our lungs or our water supply. And then they just kind of sit there like toxic glitter. It's also believed by some that chemtrails are linked to neurological issues. Things like brain fog, memory loss, confusion, or even Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease. The theory is that the aluminium that's allegedly being released into the air can build up into your body over time and eventually reach the brain. Now, quick science moment. Your brain actually has something called the blood-brain barrier, and that is like a strict security system that stops most things in your bloodstream from reaching your brain. It's there to protect your brain from toxins and infections. But chemtrail believers argue that these microscopic aluminium particles are so small that they can make their way through the blood-brain barrier, and that's where they'll start to interact or interfere with your brain function. However, it's important to note that there is no actual scientific evidence that we can find that proves that this is what is actually happening. So while the idea sounds scary, in all fairness, we can't find anything that supports that claim. And then there's the skin stuff, like the rashes, the itches, and the burning. Some folks swear that on high spray days, their skin gets really bad. Some people even post pictures of their rashes online saying that this is what it looked like after the sky was gridded. Now listen, I get eczema or maybe even psoriasis, I'm not too sure, but it gets really bad. And can you imagine it was done by chemtrails? But I don't think so. I think I'm just unlucky. One of the more interesting / kind of scary claims that I learnt of when I was researching chemtrails is how some people link chemtrails to population control. Like we're all slowly being made sick so that we either die early or so that we spend more on medical care. And while this does make sense, like not really make sense, but like I wouldn't put it past the American government, you know. The Australian maybe, but like we don't really spend that much on healthcare. Well, okay, I know this is kind of like choppy and I'm not really articulating myself well, but for my asthma pump, I spend less than $10. For my anxiety medication and my blood pressure medication, $6 a packet, and that lasts me a month each. I mean, I think in America that would cost a lot more. You guys, that's kind of bullshit. But anyway, that is a separate thing that I probably really shouldn't be talking about because I'm not an American. It's not really my place. But you know, I wouldn't put it past those in power. According to science, chemtrails are not, you know, trying to make us sick, and they're not trying to control us. But a lot of people think that they are. I personally am not one of them. I'm not really a big believer on the chemtrail thing, but I'm also not going to say no completely, because we all used to make fun of, you know, conspiracy theorists like decades ago, and look at how right that they've become. So maybe this is one of those things that they are right about, and we are just kind of we're not on that bandwagon yet. And also, you know, what was it with MK Ultra? They used to say that the government would say that no, that's not real, but that was proven to be real. Like there's a lot of things that I'm sure that they lie about that are happening, and this could be one of them. I'm not a big believer, but I know I could be wrong. I went to Flagstaff, Arizona for about a week and a half because my husband was doing some work over there. He's a metal worker, and they flew him over to do some stuff over there. And when I was there, I have never seen so many contrails / chemtrails. I see them from time to time here, but over there I was there for like just over a week and I saw so many of them. I was just telling my besties here about how when we were in America, I would see so many chemtrails, contrails, and I just wanted you to be able to share your thoughts on them if you wanted to. Do you think that they're trying to control the weather? Do you think they're trying
100%
to...
it's weather modification. They've spoken about it publicly.
Do you think that they're trying to make us sick so that we spend more on medical care? Do you think they're trying to mind control us?
I don't know if mind control
I've started a
is
podcast.
possible.
Sorry?
I don't know if mind control is possible. But some say heavy metals and wear antennas. I don't know if I believe it that far.
And what was that thing that you said? Because I did write it in my notes, but I forgot to save it. What did you say about the farmers?
Hail cannons.
Hail cannons.
So like years ago I heard people talking about weather modifications and even I thought, yeah, whatever mate. But hail cannons for orchards and stuff to stop hail from coming, because even hail damage on fruits and stuff could ruin your whole orchard. It's drastic to farmers, and they've been using that for like 50 years.
Hail cannons to... So, I think it was 2 different...
gases or something, shoots it up into the air, but it can change the weather so that it never hails over their orchards.
Yeah.
So even that alone, like I thought 10, 15 years ago, there's no way they can modify weather. Yet this shit's been going on for farmers for like 50 years.
And while that's wild, I don't find that
50.
as interesting or
It's not
fascinating
as interesting
as mind control.
No, it's not as interesting.
I want to get into
like,
the mind control.
I didn't think they could do this sort of stuff 10, 15 years ago, and they've been doing it decades before.
I didn't know that they could, but also I'm not super shocked as well. Whereas if they were making us sick so we spent more on medical care, that doesn't surprise me either. But the mind control and all that stuff, that's cool. Anyway, friends, thank you for sticking with me for another video. It was a shorter one today, but that's okay. I hope you liked it, and please do feel free to subscribe. You know, watch some more of my videos. You know, nothing's stopping you. Look at these guys. They're like, hey, support the channel. Anyway, bye friends. Bye-bye. We'll see you in the next one.